a recommendation that was made last year. It has to do with child labor. If we can recall, this year April, true, with Carnival. Minister Bourne was faced with that issue. As we can recall, then the performance of an 11-year-old child in the Carnival village caused a whole lot of commotion, and the legal brains interpreting the law sec about child labor vis-a-vis all the other stuff, the morals, etc., that go with it. When we look at the legislation, we said the legislation may or may not need adopting, but definitely we need policy to be developed to regulate how we are going to deal with situations like child labor, and not only Carnival, but all kind of different concerts and things, without killing the artistic potentials of our youngsters. So then it was decided that a committee would be put in place, and the committee would comprise of representatives of the Department of Labor, representatives of the Department of Youth Affairs, of the Ministry of Education, the Labor Inspectorate, the Court of Guardianship, and a representative of the Council of Churches. That too, we hope to be able to have that committee installed and start their work. My last statement, in my opinion, left the best for the last, and that has to do with community development. When agreeing to accept this job, I look at that component in the ministry, community development, and realize to myself that that is one of the most important part of the ministry. If we look around us, we have become a very negative community. Everything is negative. Everything is bad. Everybody has pains. There may be valid reasons for it, but we tend not to be able to see the positives anymore. And then we are on a slippery slope as a community if we don't do something to try to get out of it. And it is not only this group of people sitting here who can do that. It is also the media, you in the media, what you report. Okay? You know, we are not saying, I'm not implying whatsoever that if there are negative things that they should not be pointed out. But I think equal attention should be given to the positives also. And there are a lot of positive things that we have in our community. There are a lot of things that we have as a people to be proud of. With the community development, I've had discussions with the head of the department, and hopefully next week. And you notice I'm thinking I'm doing a job until my job stops. Okay. Hopefully next week we'll have a meeting with the community councils, because there too there's an important role to play. There too the different communities' input needs to be had. And the idea that I had, again, is not an original idea of mine. It is from looking at CNN, when I look at the CNN heroes. And right now, if you would, in any one of the community where it is even difficult that we know our neighbors, we don't sometimes even know who's living next to us anymore, okay? Much less to know who are the people in your community who have been contributing in a positive way to your community. And this is a project that I'll be talking to the community councils to get off the ground. Not government decided who deserves to be honored in a community, but a community themselves deciding who in their community have contributed in a way that should be honored with certain criterias. That, I think, wraps up my yeah, that wraps up my part of it, and I thank you.
I can't leave here without making some comments. on the ongoing constitutional crisis that we have. I emphasize constitutional because it is not a political crisis, it's a constitutional crisis. And that has to do that we have reached the stage where the governor has asked 3 judges to study the matter at 10 and to advise him by Friday, which is day after tomorrow. We, as the Prime Minister and as the minister responsible for the ministerially responsible for the actions of the governor, we send a letter to him and ask him to make that study done in 3 days. Some may look strange, but in our Constitution, the governor cannot act solely on his own. Somebody has to carry the ministerial responsibility, and hereby I encourage all of us in this society to take time out and go on the governor's website and read not only the laws, but also read the explanatory notes attached to the laws that we find on the internet. They are in English. In our structure, whether it's on Aruba, whether it's on Curacao, whether it's in the Netherlands, the king and the governor who replaces the king in the countries functions and carry out their responsibility and carry out their work with the ministerial responsibility of the Prime Minister. That is why when we have the opening of Parliament here and the governor in our system goes to Parliament, and what he says to Parliament is what is approved by the Council of Ministers and the Prime Minister. I think we need to say that straight, and that is how it is, because the governor is like the king. In Dutch, you say, hij is onschendbaar. So somebody, when you're onschendbaar, somebody has to take the political responsibility for the actions. Onschendbaar means that you can't take the governor to court. You can take the Prime Minister to court. Okay? Now, we've got that through, and I want to emphasize that we are not faced with a political crisis. There is no political crisis. The actions that have been taking place from September 30th is fully according and within the Constitution that we have. Parliament used Article 33. The Council of Ministers, in less than 12 hours, the same day, before 12 o'clock struck, the Council of Ministers reacted to that. And it is simple. I think I've explained it here. The people go to work, go to vote for Parliament. Parliament is elected. A majority in Parliament supports a Council of Ministers. At a certain moment, Parliament feels or believes or comes to the conclusion that the Council of Ministers that is there do not have the support of the majority. So they bring a motion of non-confidence. A motion of confidence is presented, it's accepted, it's carried. A group of 8 comes and says, we have a government. The Constitution, Article 59, and read the explanatory note of it, gives the Council of Ministers the authority to say to Parliament, you bring a motion on confidence, it's okay. But you know what? I'm going to check with the populace, with the voters, to see if you have the support of the voters in order to sit there in Parliament. Simply put, correcto. Another thing, people are referring to 2013. 2013, we had a similar situation. However, let me remind you all that in 2013, no elections could have been held in this country. Yes, you can look strange, but that's the fact. No elections could have been held in 2013 because there was no electoral council. We became country And our new law said that we need an electoral council. The electoral council was only appointed by the former government in January 2014. So no elections could have been held in 2013. It is important, and we have a responsibility to inform the community correctly, and not by talking what I call, I even don't want to say the word, about who threw who under the bus and who took decision and who did this and that. We have to, as a society, as Minister Boson was saying, start getting serious and explaining the truth and nothing but the truth that is stated in the law to the community. In the last release from the governor's office, remember what I'm saying, from the governor's office, it is stated that let me read it up here. On the other hand, the Council of Ministers has decided not to make its position available before a new parliament is elected and a new government is formed based on a new majority in parliament. In so doing, a political position has also been taken. This Council of Ministers have never said we're going to take our discharge or step down when a new government is in place. We said in our first letter, and probably the cabinet oversaw it, we said in Dutch, alle ministers van het kabinet zijn uiteraard voornemens hun ontslag in te dienen zodra het besluit tot ontbinden van de staten van kracht is geworden. In free English, it means all ministers of the cabinet is prepared to present their discharge the minute the decision to sign the resolution takes place.
Carried out.
It's carried out. It's very simple. I'm bringing these forward so that we can, in a very nice, quiet manner, explain the facts of the whole matter. There's nothing to get emotional about. There's nothing to go shouting. There's nothing to accuse this government about. Let me bring a few things forward. The release from the governor office, the wording can raise a suggestion and therefore potentially the expectation that involve a panel of judges will provide a definitive solution binding on parties. The wording also implies that a constitutional crisis whereby the essence of the constitutional balance of power is defended by the cabinet can be resolved by a semi-court-like setting, which is constitutionally wrong. The court has nothing to do in this. The Constitution is there. It is two options. Sign the resolution, and if you don't sign the resolution, present it using Article 21 of the Rules of Order of the Governor, send it up to the Kingdom government to approval or annulment. That's what it says. So I want to make an appeal on all of us to start living this country, reading the laws and living according to the laws. Permit me to refer to certain paragraph in a letter. Excuse that we have to read it in Dutch because the letter is in Dutch. It says, Article 59, staatsregeling tot instemming van de Staten voorleggen, staatsrechtelijk onzuiver. Let me first tell you, this letter is signed by Mr. William Marlin, Mr. Roland Truitt, Ms. Silveria Jacobs, and Mr. Romeo Ponteflet. It is dated June 11th, and it was presented to the governor, His Excellency, the Governor of St. Martin, Dr. Ernest E.B. Holiday. And I want to quote a few parts from it. Listen good. The undersigned people in that letter says, Artikel 59, artikel 59, staatsregeling ter instemming van de Staten voorleggen, staatsrechtelijk onzuiver. Because in the same letter, in this letter, the previous letter, the governor told the council ministers at that time to go to Parliament and present their concerns to Parliament. And they are saying in the letter, it is staatsrechtelijk onzuiver. Let me finish. They say, wij zijn de mening toegedaan dat omdat het ontbindingsrecht krachtens de staatsregelen autonoom recht is van de regering, de staten dat recht niet kunnen of mogen doorkruisen. Al zouden de staten met de ontbinding niet instemmen, de regering behoudt het autonoom recht tot statenontbinding. Niet de instemming van het parlement is bepalend, maar de wil van de meerderheid in de Raad van Ministers. De statenontbinding in Nederland vaak met instemming van het parlement plaatsvindt, maakt dit niet anders. Wij zouden echter wel bereid zijn uw instructie te volgen onder de voorwaarde dat het gebruik van artikel aan de instemming van de regering wordt onderworpen. Oké? Ik continue. De toetsingkaders van artikel 21 van het reglement van orde van de gouverneur. Ons staatsstelsel kent de rechtsfiguur van de parlementaire instemming met gebruik van een grondrecht door de regering niet. Het is ook niet wenselijk dat te doen, want dat zou ieder lands besluit of ministeriële beschikking ook onderworpen kunnen worden aan parlementaire instemming. Daarom verzoeken wij u de weg van artikel 21 van het reglement van orde te bewandelen. Indien u van oordeel bent het ontwerp landsverhoud strijdig is met het statuut, een internationale regeling en Rijkswet algemene maatregelen van Rijksbestuur, dan wel met belangen waarvan de waarborging aangelegen is van de regering, bent u bevoegd dit niet vast te stellen. Maar terstond kennis hiervan aan de koning te geven als hoofd van de regering van het koninkrijk. I'm reading this and I bring it forward because this is exactly what this cabinet is saying. Look at the Constitution and carry out what's in the Constitution. That's all we're saying. Basically, what I read first is that the members of the Council of Ministers at that time, who is now in a different position, is telling the governor there's no reason to go to the parliament to ask parliament their opinion. And also, they're telling him here in the letter to make use of Article 29. If you don't want to sign the resolution to dissolve Parliament in 2013, here is, you make use of your rules of order of the governor, Article 21, and send it up to the governor, to the kingdom government. That's all I'm trying to explain. I hope this has been a learning process. We are prepared to, this is public knowledge, I mean public document, and we have to get to the point where we start educating the public on this constitutional crisis that we are facing. We are waiting until Friday to hear what the results will be, anxiously. I don't know if you have any questions, taking into consideration we're pretty much delayed, which we apologize for. Yes.
Okay. Alida.
Yeah. Good morning, Prime Minister, ministers of the Cabinet. Prime Minister, you said that you're waiting on the so-called advice from the panel of judges. Should that advice say, well, the Cabinet is not in the right, will you then say, well, we've gotten expert advice that perhaps it's time we take a step aside and let the new Cabinet be appointed?
No, we will not, because the judges are not experts in constitutional law. If we are to follow any advice from any judges in this case, and first of all, how are the judges going to advise? Are they going to take their robe as if sit in court and advise on it, or they're advising a titre personnel? We have presented to the public and to everybody reports, advices from the leading constitutional professors who teaches those who are becoming judges on law. You understand what I'm saying? And those advices from these professors are there. There are three advices from three professors who says what the government is doing is the correct thing. One professor have a different opinion, which is possible, depending on which school you go, which trend of thought you have. But I and this Cabinet, the judges, if they, and which we said in the letter to the governor, that this Cabinet see two choices. Sign it. If you don't sign it, send it up. There seems to be a feeling of why involve the Dutch and why send it up. It is established in the Constitution. It is established in the rules of order of the governor. Okay? The governor is appointed by kingdom decree. Koninklijke besluit. The king is who signs the governor's resolution. So I do not understand the reason or the fear of not wanting to send it up by stating, keep the Dutch out. We are in a kingdom. This is an exercise that we have to go through. But there is two things the Constitution says. Sign it or send it up. Any other way, any other avenue that is being sought to compromise and so, we will not accept. You know why? Because we cannot continue accepting compromises where it concerns our Constitution. Then we might as well take the Constitution, shred it, and put it in the garbage. If there are things in the Constitution that some people don't like, there's a process. Go to Parliament and change the Constitution. But we are not going to continue permitting that the Constitution, when it's convenient, is sidestepped. Because when you develop a country, and in the beginning you are sidestepping from the laws of the country, in this case the Constitution, then you are creating what is called customary law. In Dutch it's called gewoonterecht. And then gewoonterecht will become difficult to govern by, because what happens when the next governor or a different minister comes in? That is why we have to stick to the Constitution. And 2013, the opinion was the same from the Right Honourable Member of Parliament, William Marlin, was Minister of Romy then. Mr. Roland Tuitt was the Minister of Finance. Hilberry Jacobs, she was a Member of Parliament, she was the Minister. And Romy Panford, the Minister of TZ. They signed it in 2013. What's on paper has patience. Papier heeft geduld. I didn't create this. It's there. So that is our position.
Do you believe that the current situation or constitutional crisis, as you have termed it today, is harmful to the country, considering that any decisions that your present Council of Ministers make can be put up for resolution, can put the country in a situation of a...
Cannot, my dear.
Cannot.
No. A motion was brought against the government. The government did not resign. The government did not resign. The minute we resign, then it's a different picture. But we're going to resign when the resolution to dissolve Parliament is signed. Ask any constitutional lawyer, local or regional or in the kingdom.
Okay. Thank you.
Please do that.
Now for easier question. Minister of Finance, you mentioned that the budget 2016, if I understood correctly, is now with the Council of Advice. And you mentioned that on the figure of 510 million guilders as the end figure. Can you just explain that a bit? Is that now the draft budget amount for 2016, 510?
Yeah, we have, actually the budget was approved yesterday in the Council of Ministers, so it's on their way to the Council of Advice, probably not there yet, with a total expense level of 485.
485. Yeah. The CFT, sorry, one last question. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yes, sorry. The CFT, in its last visit to St. Martin, mentioned that, Professor Agha-Bakr said that the amendments that government was sending to Parliament to the 2015 budgets was basically the amount that you wanted to increase it by was basically unrealistic, and that a negative advice was issued on that, which of course I believe you have already received. How are you intending to address that?
Basically, that advice also came from the Council of Advice, and we are addressing that in the report to the Council of Advice, and then it can go to Parliament for discussion. We are not completely out of the woods yet, but there is a solution what we think is feasible, and not everything that CFT says is right. We can prove them wrong, but that will take some extra effort.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Alida. Prime
We
Minister.
had one question.
Yes, Prime Minister Gums, you read the letter from 2013. Can you say the situation in 2013 is the exact same? Because based on my memory, there were no motion of no confidence. And now that you're talking Constitution, tell us what the Constitution says. When a cabinet or a minister receives a motion of no confidence, do they have X amount of time to wait before they resign or get out of office, or what is it?
The Constitution doesn't stipulate that. There's no stipulation in the Constitution on that. And the other thing is the only difference between 2013 and 2015 is that in 2013 there were motions passed. There were motions passed. Maybe at a later date, later down the week, we can provide those to you because they're all there in the files. Remember the meeting that was called that was considered illegal when a certain particular gentleman was in the crowd and was asked to be the griffier in 2013?
Yes,
In that meeting there were motions approved, yes, and passed. Check your files good. And the difference is that in 2013, the whole cabinet resigned. This cabinet have not resigned as yet. That's the difference. And what I told you was very important. Maybe nobody wants to talk about it, but in 2013, no elections could have been held because there was no electoral council. I think the former prime minister outfoxed everybody on that one.
Okay, I did understand all of that, but let us assume, you said that the governor, as long as he signs the landslide slide to dissolve parliament, if let's say he signs it today, will your cabinet resign immediately if the governor also says that he signs it? You just say, if he sign it, you're going to resign. And if the governor says, well, I do not want you as a caretaker cabinet anymore because of this stance.
Well, I don't know about caretaker government, where that comes into play. Like we said, if the governor signed it 11 a.m. in the morning, 11:03 we signed our dismissal, our ontslagbrief.
I'm ready to leave.
Well, somebody got to organize elections.
And that would be you.
That would be this government.
Oh, I see. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bibi.
Very simple. I really want to encourage everyone to, encourage our people to read the laws of this country on the Constitution and in general. Too often we read, and I said it before here, and other people are reading things that, they stay away and go on the website and read the laws and wonder what is going on. But that's it. I want to quote what Margaret Thatcher once said. You know what she once said? This government will not be weakened. This nation will meet the challenge, and democracy will prevail. Margaret Thatcher said it. I'm not claiming it, I'm just quoting her.